event is in association with Shinjini Academy of Fine Arts and Culture and the Connaught IHCL Seleqtions as venue and hospitality partner with the untiring support of the Ehsaas Women of Delhi. Based in Kolkata, Prabha Ketan Foundation is dedicated towards social, cultural welfare and humanitarian causes. For the past 4 decades, the organization has been dedicatedly working towards promotion of literature, heritage and culture for over 40 cities in India and abroad with a network of committed volunteers and associates. This session of Tête-à-Tea, organized by Prabha Ketan Foundation, is a freewheeling conversation where eminent personalities from varied walks of life come on board and speak on a particular subject. And the topic for today is Romania's contribution to European cultural scene and India's role as a cultural powerhouse in South Asia. Today's session is with Ambassador Sena Latif, and I extend my warm welcome to you. We are delighted to have you here today. And I'm confident you share my enthusiasm for what will undoubtedly be a stimulating and insightful conversation. Ms. Sena Latif began her mandate as Ambassador Extraordinary and Philanthropy of Romania to India, Nepal, and Bangladesh, based in New Delhi, in November 2024. A career diplomat with nearly 20 years of experience, she has served in key roles within the Romanian External Service and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Her diplomatic postings include assignments in Paris, Colombia, Argentina, and New York, where she handled European affairs at the Permanent Mission at the UN. She has held leadership roles such as Deputy Director for Policy Planning and Director for Economic Diplomacy at the MFA. Academically, she holds degrees from University Pantheon Assas, Paris, an MA in International Relations, and the Academy of Economic Sciences of Bucharest in International Business, with further studies at NYU, ENA Paris, and Yale University. She is fluent in English, French, and Spanish, with a working knowledge of Turkish. Born in Bucharest, she's a mother of a daughter who's here with us today. Welcome. In conversation with her, we have Mr. Srinjoy Chowdhury. Srinjoy Chowdhury is Senior Editor of Times Now, the 24-hour news and current affairs channel, part of the Times of India Group, and Reuters. He began his career as a journalist in 1984 with Sunday. He worked for the Telegraph and the Statesman. He lives in New Delhi with his wife and daughter. Without much delay, I urge you to sit back and enjoy the conversation. Let's exchange of ideas begin on the topic for the day. Romania's contribution to the European cultural scene and India's role as a cultural powerhouse in South Asia. Over to you, Mr. Chowdhury.
After what you said, I don't think I need to say anything. It's almost done. But thank you everyone for coming. It's so important that these things happen. And I'm so grateful to the ambassador because, let's face it, she didn't have to come to India. She wasn't forced to come to India. She chose to come to India. She wanted to come to India. Yeah, and that's important. And I'm beginning by keeping in mind the fact that this relationship has been as strong as it has, because with me is a piece of paper, the first page of a newspaper from 1969, which is how long ago? 41 and 24, 65 years ago. And what does the headline say? India, Romania hold the same views on major issues. That's quite a beginning, isn't it? Yeah. So here it is. Well, if you think it's impressive, then you know half the battle is won. But of course it's yours. Yes. So that's really a beginning. But let me just say that this is a very important moment for India and Romania, for India and Europe. And you've been here 3 months. What have the first impressions been like? keep mine.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, thank you to the foundation and to yourself for the invitation. And thanks to all of you being here. Srinjoy has rightfully said, but I can steal his joke a little bit, that is probably one of the few places here where there are more Romanians than Indians in the room. And I'm very, very happy to welcome you all. It's not just Romanians and Indians, but very special to me is that we also have here, if you didn't know, some Indians that are studying Romanian language. So and also some Romanians that speak various languages from your very diverse country. I was indeed not just happy to be sent to India 3 months ago, but truly honored. It's not the first time I come here, so I came knowing a little bit about it, but by far not enough, and I'm very eager to discover. We were received, both my daughter and me, very well, very warmly by everybody. We didn't feel any difficulty in making friends. You were actually one of the first friends, if I can say already, call you a friend, that we met in our events, and I was impressed by the knowledge and curiosity that you have and the other Indians we've met about Romanian culture. So I was really, really glad to accept this invitation to be able to talk together with you and try to not just promote, but maybe also demolish some myths maybe, and also present other facts about Romania that maybe are less known here.
Thank you very much. We'll actually start with bad news. We'll start by remembering the fact that it's 80 years since the liberation of Auschwitz, which is probably the worst blot in human history. And 1 million people were killed in Auschwitz. One man who survived was a Romanian I had interviewed. I didn't have the right to interview him as such a young reporter, but I did. Elie Wiesel, who won the Nobel Prize. So, no, you have to read the interview first, and then you say there are too many holes in it, right? So, his book, of course, is the most famous. Billions of pages have been written on the Holocaust. But perhaps those 126 pages of Night are more moving than anything else that has been written. Remember asking him, you're a believer. So where was God when Auschwitz existed? And he said God was in exile. So what I'll do is to remember Elie Wiesel, who is not just Romanian, but European, because he spent a lot of time in France. And also remembering Eugene Ionesco, Rhinoceros. Every intellectual in Bengal has read Rhinoceros. Yes. So that said, you agree, right?
Yes. You have played in it.
Yeah. So that said, I'll start by just reading out 3 or 4 quotes from Night. And here goes. I awoke on January 29 at dawn. In my father's place lay another invalid. They must have taken him away before dawn and carried him to the crematorium. He may have still been breathing. There were no prayers at his grave, no candles were lit in his memory. His last words were my name, a summons to which I did not respond. I did not weep, and it pained me that I could not weep, but I had no more tears. And in the depths of my being, in the recesses of my weakened conscience, could I have searched it, I might perhaps have found something, like free at last. It no longer mattered. After my father's death, nothing could touch me anymore. I had but one desire, to eat. I no longer thought of my father or of my mother. One day, I was able to get up. This is after he was liberated. And after gathering all my strength, I wanted to see myself in the mirror, hanging on the opposite wall. I had not seen myself since the ghetto. From the depths of this mirror, a corpse gazed back at me. The look in his eyes as they stared into mine has never left me. How does Romania remember Elie Wiesel and Eugene Ionesco?
Thank you so
They're
much.
European.
They're European, they're world citizens. And actually the contribution of Elie Wiesel is much beyond, I think, the remembrance of Holocaust. And in Romania, because he was born there, we feel this certain, not just pride, of course, but responsibility to carry on the work he started. And I remember when I actually had the chance to see him also, not to interview him like others here, but to just see him in an event in New York when in my first position when he was still alive, and actually whenever we had high-level meetings from Romania in New York with the General Assembly, he would try, if it was possible, to meet with us and with other NGOs. So what is happening in Romania is that thanks to him and his legacy, there is now, we also have a National Day for Remembering the Holocaust, which creates all kind of awareness and projects for the victims, for their descendants, and a lot of programs for education, which is very important. And what actually his legacy was beyond the Shoah or the Holocaust, because at some point what he said was that silence always benefits the tormentor, never the tormented.
Yes.
And it encouraged people to always to speak up, and not just for anti-Semitism, but for any kinds of hatred and discrimination against any kinds of communities. And I think we can feel this in Romania. We are, of course, nothing compared to India, but we are proud to have a very diverse population. We're about 18 minorities in Romania. I myself am part of the Crimean Tatars minority. We have, of course, the Hungarian, the Jews, the Polish, many European and further Asian as well. And all of us live in really good dialogue. We learn each other's languages as children when we play together. So these are things that just people are aware of thanks to reading about him, thanks to the foundations that have been created. There are international committees that bear his name, that have academics, but also NGOs, always active in promoting remembering the Holocaust, but also fighting against discrimination and anti-Semitism. He was...
Tell me about UNESCO, and a bit more about Visa.
UNESCO is very interesting. We have a few names, that are very famous, Romanians abroad. A lot of them lived in France or died in France, so we share them with the French citizens. UNESCO is one of them, Cioran is another, Eliade, of course, who has studied in Calcutta, and UNESCO as well. He's known to be the father of the theater of the absurd.
Sure.
He had many plays that you remember, the rhinoceros, of course, that are still very current today. Rhinoceros, again, people will know here as a symbol of those who are not able to have their own opinion, to fight against the masses, the mass currents. At that time it was the Nazi current that he was criticizing. But actually last year, or 2 years ago, with my daughter, we went to the theater festival in Avignon, in France, one of the main ones, where a Romanian theater from Suceava, from the north of the country, Moldova side of our country, where unfortunately we have also witnessed Holocaust in the 40s, that Romanian government, of course, remembers and regrets. They played the rhinoceros to this day in 2022, reinterpreted. So the message stays the same. There's the same Béranger that fights against the masses, and people think he's crazy. And it's not the Nazi current now, but the consumerism that they're criticizing. So that's the universality of UNESCO, is that his themes, what he was talking about then, can always be adapted in today. And I was surprised to learn, actually, not before, but coming here, that a play that I've seen, which is played on Broadway even to this day, Exit the King, which is probably the one less absurd of his works. It's much more to reality, it's much more linear, there's actually a line of story. Apparently it's also inspired by the Upanishads, from of course, that you all know, the theories of life and the death and consciousness. So I was impressed of so many links that Romanian great thinkers and writers have had from India.
Well, Elie Wiesel was a saintly figure, but one of the most evil people in mankind was also Romanian. Thankfully, he's not a real person, but a fictional character, and it is Count Dracula. Now, Count Dracula, it must be a huge figure. There's a castle, a Dracula castle somewhere in Romania, and every second tourist wants to go to that castle. So he's more famous than many Romanians who were actually alive. So tell me about Dracula. We on the outside have read Bram Stoker and acted in it and so on. How does a Romanian see Dracula? And you see Hollywood versions of it, You see theatre with Dracula doing all the nice things to Lucy and Mina and all those people. I can't remember. So, how does a Romanian view Count Dracula, the Count?
We are actually proud of the story because we know, of course, the real story, the real inspiration of Dracula, Vlad Țepeș, Vlad Dracul. He was a real prince king at that time. I'm not sure how to translate it. We had a different country hierarchy, so he was the leader of the Romanian lands at that time. It was a different geography, different map that Romania had. It was in the 15th century, 1450, around that time, and he actually belonged to this order, like you have the military orders, religious orders, which was called the dragon. And from dragon they said the Dracul, and Dracul in Romania means the devil. So Dracula was much later on a nickname, which had a connection to do with the fact that he was very cruel. Why we are proud of the character is because he was actually fighting for justice. He was fighting to protect the land against the Ottomans, but also to protect, there were also many internal feuds inside the Romanian land, so there were all kinds of different hierarchical leadership, thieves. So whenever he would catch a thief or an enemy, in order to give the example of bad behavior and to scare the others of doing the same, they would do cruel things, cut limbs or other things, even impale. So they would have the victims impaled in front to scare the potential enemies. So from there on, they made this character. Bram Stoker actually created this, further on, he created the character, inspired from him. The funny story is that the castle that they used in the movie, which is a castle which is visited and it's sublime, it's splendid, it's not his castle. It's not. We don't even know if he ever stepped foot there. His castle, actually, I have our nanny here with us, who's from the town where he lived. It's called Târgoviște, and my daughter has also visited it. Oh, it's a beautiful castle where he actually ruled and had all his court. But it's not the one that we see in the movies. But we do encourage it, of course. It's a touristical thing. We encourage people to visit it. Actually, it's a private property now. It can be rented. I heard some people have some famous Americans. I'm not sure now the names, have rented it for Halloween. So it's something that we are happy to be associated with, as long as people know it's a fiction and this guy existed. He was cruel, but he was defending his people.
So you can be the count for a night, is what you're saying. That's not so bad.
Have Nina there as well.
Yes, and Lucy, right, from what I remember, right? Yeah. So that's one. But apart from the tourist attraction that is Dracula's castle, and there are more of them, I mean, what I hear from people, friends, the place to go in Europe where there are fewer people going is actually Romania. Mm-hmm. In some ways, the only place in Europe where there is a huge expanse, and there are many people here who want to go to Romania. Huge amount of untouched forest is Romania, where the bears have come back and the bisons have come back and so on. What is that place like? Are you encouraging people to go to Romania?
Of course we are. Thank you for bringing it up, and I take the chance to also to introduce my colleagues. Ionuț Vizuri is our trade and tourism attaché, and Ruxandra Ciocănarea is also diplomat in our political section. So whoever is interested afterwards, we have some other colleagues, Cosmin and other members of the embassy. We are here to help you plan your trips there. Indeed, it is a magical place, not just because it's my country, but it is. We have the largest and most untouched forests in Europe, with the largest quantity of brown bears, wolves. And also what is very unique, if there are nature lovers here, is that we have the Danube River that actually, starting from Germany, it ends in Romania, and it's in Romania where it flows into the Black Sea, creating a delta which is unique in the world, the biosphere of the Danube Delta, with hundreds, thousands of different species of fish and birds. There are fishermen villages where you can only reach by boat, with amazing cuisine and landscapes. So there are certainly areas that only there you can see, and we are happy to try to welcome you there. Romania is, since starting 1st of January now, also a full member of the Schengen area, so it's also easier for those of you who have already got the Schengen visa. Otherwise, our colleagues at the consulate will be happy to give them some more work to do.
So you have Dracula's castles, not just one. but several castles, and then a forest, then the delta. So there's a lot to see. Of course, it's a large country, but even otherwise, palaces of some of the old rulers are still open. I
Yes,
think. They have
yes.
become museums.
So although again, compared to India, it's not such a big country. In Europe, we are a mid-sized country, maybe 6th or 7th in the European Union. And what is very particular to us is that Romania has always been at the crossroads of many empires. And all of them have wanted a piece of it and have gotten a piece of it at some time, that we fought back afterwards with rulers like Vlad Tepes and others. So the main influences that Romania has at this point, the 3 regions, is the south, where I'm from, where the capital is and has been historically. And that's been mostly conquered and influenced by the Ottoman Empire. So you have also some Turkish words and cuisine influence, but also, of course, our ancient Dacian, we call it, from thousands of years ago,
yes.
Roman province. And then in northeast, there's the Moldova region, which is more influenced by the east, of course, from the Tsar, the Russian empires, and then you have there the beautiful Orthodox churches that can be visited, which are very particular, I think, for the whole of Europe, let alone for Asians. And then the western side is Transylvania, with the famous castle, medieval castles, not just the Dracula one, but many from 14th, 15th centuries. Whole entire cities with the houses that are lived still today from those ages that can be rented now. They have managed to actually do this agro-tourism, we call it, or rural tourism, where you can live in villagers' houses and have very organic bio cuisine. A lot of winery being developed as well. Romania is the 5th producer in Europe of wine, which is a big number considering the others are France, Italy, Germany, the big ones, Spain, the 10th or 11th in the world. So we also have very nice boutique wineries that you can be lodged there and then have nice tasting. It's many, many things that we'll be glad to open.
You've been in India 3 months. How much of India? It's of course a slightly large country, so to see little bits of it. One after. How much of India have you seen so far? How much do you plan to look at?
Well, planning is, I would like to visit all the states, of course. I have, for now, just visited Mumbai in the Christmas time for work and for Christmas. We took advantage and enjoyed being there. Tomorrow we're going with a group of ambassadors to Kumbh Mela.
Yes.
They're organizing a trip and I'm very excited to go. Next week with my colleague we'll go to a business forum in Kolkata. The other week we'll go to Bengaluru for defense, Air India, with Romanian delegations everywhere. And I have to say I was here maybe 16, 17 years ago. It happened that my uncle was also ambassador of Romania to India. It's a coincidence I'm also here. It's not a dynasty title that we inherit. It's just of course, I was a diplomat being inspired by his activity, but never I thought I would come here to also serve. So when I came here, he asked me, of course, I saw at that time Agra, Jaipur, Golden Triangle, and he asked me if I could choose to visit just one, to make one trip, because there was not enough time between Kolkata and Mumbai. So I went to Kolkata, being presented as a cultural epicenter. And I was very happy to visit at that time Shantiniketan, Tagore's, whose writings are of course famous in Romania, Tagore's village. And I remember to this day I was very impressed by the university that was inspired, created by him with the concept, yes, the concept of outdoor learning and the circle, the classrooms where students sit in a circle, so close to each other, to nature. I was really impressed. So I'm very happy to go back and discover more.
That's so nice. Because there are really 2-3 kinds of ambassadors. There are ambassadors who come here and no criticism, it's just how they feel. There are 2 ways. You come to India and you say, I don't like the idea of coming to India. So what you do is go from one high commission to another embassy, one fancy dinner in a 5-star hotel to another sort of reception in an embassy, back to the MEA, and in 3 years you're gone. You, on the other hand, have seen quite a lot of India already. It's only 3 months. If someone's been to Shantiniketan in 3 months, I come from the outer regions of the Indian Empire. So I feel so happy that you've been to Shantiniketan. But the 3 people, India remembers most, the three Romanians, are actually all sports personalities, right? And I'd like your views on them, what you think of them. I start with Ehsaas, who's probably the least remembered, apart from people like Venkat and myself, who are of that generation. And because he was the first world #1 on the ATP. And but for his bad sort of temper, he would have won many more Grand Slams. But what we remember about Nastasia is he used to come to Calcutta, or at least come once. And in those days, it was more amateur. So he used to play in the Davis Cup. And a friend of mine whose father played Nastasia and probably lost horribly in the Davis Cup. Nastasia was world #1. But Nastasia was nice enough to actually go to their house and play with the children. And the children still remember him as Uncle Ely. Then there is Nadia Comaneci, the first person, the most famous gymnast in the world, right? And the third is, unless you know football, you won't know so much, is Haji. I'm not sure my Romanian pronunciation is very good, but I hope it's at least reasonably all right. So tell me, Comaneci lives in America. Nastasia became a politician. And he's married, I think, 4 or 5 times. Each time his wife is younger, right? So, which is not necessarily a bad thing, of course. And then Haji, who is seen as the European Maradona.
Right.
Tell me how Romania remembers them, sees them, likes them. Tell me, what is it like? You have seen them from so close.
Well, you are very well informed, and I know you had your personal passion and much information about Nastasia. I was very happy to discover. There are indeed 3 icons and legends of Romanian sports, and not just sports, identity. People feel proud. They watch them, their games, and we feel proud. You feel more Romanian. You hear the anthem, and then you see Nastasia. Some Romanians have the same feeling. At some point, I think there was a private bank in Romania that had credit cards with their faces, so you could choose one credit card with one of exactly these 3 guys' faces on it. And Nadia Comaneci, of course, she's the most renowned for having the first clear 10 in history. At the point in Montreal Olympics that they even didn't have, they used to have just 9.99, for example, the biggest. So when they showed the mark, the table didn't have enough places, they showed 1.00. They couldn't show 10, it was 1.00 because nobody had it before. She was just a girl at that time. And although she lives in America, because at that time Romania, you know, it was under communism rule, she couldn't really live her life as freely as everybody had deserved. So she settled her life in the US. But to this day, she's very, very involved in still promoting Romanian values and gymnasts. Romania has continued the tradition of gymnasts thanks to her. Sometimes it takes a person like this that whole generations are inspired afterwards. You know, after Nastasia, more recently we've had Simona Halep, again #1 and Grand Slam champion, who's again inspired the whole generation of young girls this time, like Nastasia had inspired the boys at that time. I've seen, and we were lucky with my daughter to meet Nadia Comaneci this summer. We were in Paris we were still working there for the Olympics. That were there, and she actually fought for one of the Romanian gymnasts that was set to be misjudged. So she's very strong promoter still, and we're very, very grateful, and she remains an icon. Nastasia, of course, he was very well known for his temper. I do hope, and I don't want to make promises publicly that I cannot hold, but I will do my best to try and bring to India the new documentary that has just been created last year, presented officially in Cannes, selected for Cannes Film Festival. And I was lucky to be there at the world premiere, sitting just in front of him. He was in the main VIP row, and I was in front. And all the cameras, of course, at the end of the movie were on him. He had tears in his eyes. He's still very sensitive and very passionate person. And I really encourage, I won't say much about what I discovered, which was new also to me as Romanian in the movie, but all this temper that he had, all the personality and sometimes a little naughty, it still made him so loved and so beloved by all his colleagues because they all saw the good heart and the passion he had before. Maybe he lacked a little of the discipline that Ion Ciriac, his partner, had, who would always pull him, push him to strive further, to train, to be number one. But he was a little racist. At that point, today he couldn't go around and say what he said then. But then you have Arthur Ashe and others who said that we were angry, and then after 1 hour we would all go and have a pizza together in New York. And it was very interesting because what I also discovered in this movie and the world he lived, that they were much more united. They had this solidarity between sportsmen. There was of course competition on the ground, but then behind they were just friends. They were training together. Now you don't see Serena with Simona Halep training. They don't even say hello to each other. They're complete enemies with their whole camps, like war battles. Whereas these guys were training together against each other 1 hour before playing. So he's an amazing character still, with a very young, indeed beautiful wife also, and still a very generous person that is we're always happy to see him around. And
they used to say that the two most talented tennis players of the Open era were John McEnroe and Elena Stassi. Sheer talent.
And they were
discipline, of course, is a different matter.
Yes.
Tell us about Haji.
Well, Haji, I was maybe in high school when he was the most famous, when he was winning the matches for Romania. What is interesting, maybe what you don't know now, is that his son is actually following in his steps. So Romania finally this year has qualified and has had the Romanian football team has had a new comeback after a few years of not being at the top like before. And the so-called golden boys, or how you call them, the golden team, is now
generation.
In the golden generation is now followed by I think they made some playing with the words of the golden boys or silver generation by his son, Yanis Haji, and who's very active in Haji. I think he has a school, if I'm not mistaken, where he trains the young generation. So they're all still very, very present in the presence of Romanian figures.
This is such a wonderful conversation. I wish it wouldn't end. There are people here who are very tough, and if Indians had to go to Romania, let's say we had a week in Romania, what would you want them to do?
It's a good question. So we would start, because of also the traveling to Bucharest, maybe the capital where we will land. We have, it's not something I usually promote, but it's interesting for you at least to know that in Bucharest we have the second biggest building in the world. And we're not promoting it, we're not too proud of it because it was built by Ceausescu, the former communist ruler. But it's still an impressive building that remains there, that he built as the House of People. It was his residence, now it's the House of Parliament. And it's an impressive building full of golden curtains and marble and all from Romanian soil. So that's there, maybe you just see it from the outside. And then we have a lot of nice, many interesting places, historical places to see in Bucharest. Bucharest, I have to say, is also very famous for its nightlife. We have a lot of tourists from Western Europe who just come for the weekend as a city break to go to nice restaurants and nightclubs because it's the life costs a little cheaper than Western Europe, let's say. There's a big boom in real estate. And then after 1 or 2 days like this, I will go towards Transylvania, towards Brașov or Sibiu. We have one of the cities, the medieval cities, where nearby we find the Dracula, so-called Dracula castle. If there was time, we could reach also Cluj-Napoca. It's the second biggest city in Romania, which is a very fast developing town. It's what we call the Silicon Valley of the Central Eastern Europe, where we have the IT hubs developing. Your Bangalore, let's say, we have with Cluj-Napoca, keeping proportions, of course, realistic. And then coming back towards Moldova, we could cross over the Carpathians and have a glimpse of the forest that you mentioned, and see the churches, the Orthodox beautiful churches. Some of them are from almost 1,000 years ago. come back. I think we're at 8-9 days now, if you can allow me 10 days instead of a week, to stop over the delta of the Danube to see these special places I mentioned with all the bird and the vegetation, which is very special. Coming back towards the seaside to Bucharest.
Wonderful. So how many of us are going? Like next year? Or this year? Oh, okay, 3 hands. Only 3. Well, half the people, as I said, never in the world would you find a room where there are more Romanians than Indians in India. So I can't say any more than thank you, all of you, for coming. I hope, Rachna, there's still some coffee we can drink once we go outside. And yes,
Or any corrections?
are there any corrections, any questions, anything I've said wrong? Please feel free to throw the kitchen sink at me, or at least the mic. Yes, yes, Venkat.
Ambassador, you share a
border with Ukraine.
Yes.
Most of the Ukrainians fled to Poland. Did any of them go to your country also? And how are you looking after them? Thanks.
Can I just say something before you answer? On behalf of every Indian, and there are what, 1.4 billion of us, we would like to thank all of Romania for helping to get 8,000 of our students in the Ukraine out. Thank you, Romania, and thank you, Ambassador.
So you're right, we share the longest border in Europe with Ukraine from all the European countries. Ours is the longest, almost 700 kilometers. So I think a fair number are very similar to those that have fled to Poland, came through Romania. About 6 million Ukrainian people have crossed Romanian borders. Not all of them stayed, of course. Most of them continued their way to other European countries or other destinations, including other foreigners, the 8,000 Indians through Operation Ganga that have come to Bucharest with the help of our authorities, the Indian embassy of course, and with a special flight back to India. About 200,000 Ukrainians stayed in Romania and have found their home there. In the beginning it was, I have to say, a little hectic of course, because they would just come on all the border points by car, by train, by boat. We have all different types of borders with them. So it took a little while for the government to be able to create the platform. So many NGOs it was an incredible show of humanitarian and humanity from all the people. Because usually it wasn't necessarily our, in the border cities, sometimes there are, some conflicts between the communities. You fight for having your language school promoted or all kinds of things. All of a sudden this didn't matter, it was just humanity. Everybody opened their house, all the Romanians have opened their house to Ukrainian refugees. A lot of diplomats, because we are here, our homes are mostly empty at home. I have myself some Ukrainians at home that I don't know, I've never met, that I left my keys to my sister, and everybody who had an empty room would have people over. The platforms, the NGOs, were faster to create. They actually were awarded some international prizes for creating the platforms to match the offer and the demand, because many people would just donate blankets or food, but they actually needed something else maybe, because some of them came by car, they had food, but they didn't have a place to live. And then the government actually adopted this platform and created all the infrastructure to bring them, because there would be a lot of them in the north. It was a very big pressure on the cities in the north, the border, but then you have developed cities in the capital in the south as well. So it was a lot of effort from the government, also including the education. Most of the people are women and children, of course, that have left. So you had to integrate these kids into schools. We were able to have them follow either the national Romanian curricula, but also their own Ukrainian curricula through online programs. We had to integrate them in the social system, medical system, public transportation, everything. So the government has done a lot. I think we are one of all of Europe, and everybody is, of course, supporting Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. It's they're fighting not just for themselves, but they're fighting for everybody's freedom, because we are talking about international law, about international norms. So we are glad to support them in any way we can, as long as needed.
Any other questions?
Ambassador, India has, many things to offer in terms of food, culture, music. A lot of our literature is world famous. How well is the Indian culture known to the Romanians, and how do they see us in Romania?
I'm glad to have also many Romanians here that they can answer afterwards over coffee, but I have to say it's more and more known. I think we've had Indian restaurants for as long as I remember in Bucharest after the fall of communism. And then what is catching more and more in the past years is the passion for yoga. I think most of my friends know about yoga. We actually celebrate the International Day of Yoga every year in Bucharest. Sorry? 21 June. There you go.
Yes.
It's when I presented my letters of credential to the president of India, she actually knew and she congratulated us for also promoting and having Ayurveda medicine and yoga in Romania. So I was happy that she knew. It is very, very famous. Just last week there was one of the most famous Romanian TV presenters, anchors. In her very personal, she's not saying where because she doesn't want everybody to follow her afterwards. In some ashram that she comes every year, every January. It's her yearly Andrea. There you go. So more. They are making it very private because it is a private. It should be an intimate experience, but we know just the idea. And it promotes. There is a big awareness of India in Romania, I must say.
Thank you.
Plus IT, I suppose. You have a IT center, and we have Bangalore.
We have that, and what we have also more and more is a lot of Indian diaspora. We're very happy to welcome more and more Indians that come to work in Romania in all kinds of jobs, from restaurants, hotels, IT, construction. They're very well integrated. They speak perfect English, so all the employers are actually seeking them. That's why we also have a bigger consular section here, trying to welcome all the India as well as Nepal and Bangladesh. That is also under our embassies there.
What about the Romanian gypsies? Who are they? Are they come from India?
Ancient, historical, so it's very interesting. I take the moment now to make a little promotion for us on the 14th of February. If you're here and you're interested, I have to remember the exact name of the place, but it's not far, it's somewhere central. We have a concert. It's called Liviolon Țigan, the Gypsy Violins. It's an orchestra of 14 Romanian violinists. Some of them gypsy, some of them are just playing gypsy music. They will play Enesco, another of the names that the Romanian composer that you must have heard abroad. Bela Bartok, who's Hungarian Romanian, the gypsy dances.
Hungarian.
And Vladimir Cosma, who's also one of the most famous Romanian composers for film, for soundtracks. And so there is this connection that they are making. It's actually a French, the Alliance Française, the French Alliance, who's bringing this group with our support. Because they play French music, they come from Romania, and they have this gypsy background. So I think this is a triangle from Romania, France, and India. Originally, there are more roots, like to all minorities, Tatar minority as well, can come from Crimea, but also from Eastern and Central Asia. So for the gypsies, some of them could come, and we think, of course, from here, others from Egypt as well. There is a branch that can come from there. Maybe originally it was still here, and they might just migrate to different areas. There, my friends say it's particularly Rajasthan.
The coloring is such also.
Yes, and they are one of the bigger minorities in our country, and they were very keen on integrating and happy that they have especially this music that is, most of them are musicians. Some are educated in conservatory, others are just musicians. They're talented by ear, yes.
Any more questions?
I would like to
Yes,
make a
of
tiny
course.
suggestion. Well, we are the student of Romanian language at the university.
Yes, I'm sorry.
And I think the best way to know any people of any country is through their literature. So, while we were learning the language, we are still learning, and then this idea came up that we could get to know Romania better through its literature. So this project also is sort of taking shape with us, that we would like to, in the coming years, translate Romanian literature into Hindi or in English so that it becomes available to a larger group of people in India. Apart from that, we would also like to translate some of our works into Romanian, as and when we get to that stage where we can become well versed with the language. So, this is just a tiny suggestion. We would like to seek support in that regard.
Please count on our support. Thank you so much for the suggestion, and also thanks to my legal professor that is teaching you very well Romanian already. It's indeed a very good way to learn the culture. We've had, the 15th of January, we've celebrated the Romanian National Culture Day, which is a day the birth of Eminescu. Eminescu is our national poet. And we were very happy to find out that he had perfect calligraphy in Sanskrit. He was passionate, he was inspired by the Upanishad. A lot of his most famous poem, which is called, what is it in English, the Rising Star? The Morning Star, sorry. Apparently, and many of his works are inspired from Indian, from Hinduism, religion and beliefs, faith as well. And so what we did, we couldn't find an official, I'm sure there had been official translation, but we have local staff in the embassy that speak Hindi, and they've translated themselves. So we registered, we recorded a little of the poem, the Romanian, his most famous poem, in Romanian and in Hindi. So things like this, we can try and see, of course, maybe.
It was in Bengali.
All right.
That's even better.
So we can try and definitely make projects like this. This was very improvised. We just did ourselves in one afternoon, but we could do it more. We can involve the National Book Center in Romania, the Cultural Institute. Others, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for an absolutely riveting rendezvous. On behalf of Prabha Khaitan Foundation, I would extend my sincerest gratitude to Ambassador Sena Latif and Mr. Srinjoy Chowdhury. I take this opportunity to thank our associate, the Connaught IHCL Seleqtions and Sai Shinjini Academy of Fine Arts and Culture, and also the Ehsaas Women of Delhi. A heartfelt note of thank you to the audience for making the time to come here this evening. Your gracious presence made the session all the more special. Hope you all enjoyed being here. Prabha Khaitan Foundation encourages cross-cultural exchange in all its events. We try to invoke a local touch through our food, clothing, and mementos, encouraging and supporting artisans and craftsmen from India. To facilitate the ambassador and our conversationalist, we give a giveaway of some handloom stoles. I request Mr. Venkat Narayan to please come forward and felicitate Ambassador and Srinjoy. Thank you all.
May I put that on your neck?
Thank you. It's so beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let me just.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
I'm happy.